Good morning. What is great, good, and real? And welcome to day 54 of the Do You Rules live stream experience. I am that dude, Cliche Jeff, and it is Sunday morning. We are starting our week, and so therefore, I have high hopes. I have high hopes that this could be the week. What exactly could this be the week for? I don't know. That's part of the beauty of life. That's part of the beauty of making strides in an attempt to what I would say would be the satisfaction of my life. And that's what I offer you today. The question of, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied with yourself and with your life? And what exactly is satisfaction and what could create dissatisfiers? I think that's important. And what could create maybe non-dissatisfiers? What can create just a reality of it just is? And maybe we don't consider and we've stopped considering whether or not we're satisfied. Let's do a systems check. It's warmer, but it's still cold. What time is it? Hey, don't talk to me like that, Siri. What time is it? Yes, it's 4:31 a.m. It is Sunday, my beautifully blessed people. Hydration system, chapstick, very different chapstick today. My son, his lips were chapped. He asked, Daddy, you got a chapstick? I need a chapstick, my G. Oh, I love that little dude, man. I call him little G. So I said, yo, downstairs by where we sit, he games on this when I'm not recording. Is a chapstick. I said, but don't lose my chapstick. Put it back. And so last night before we went upstairs together, I said, yo, where's my chapstick? And he said, oh man, I think I lost it in the sofa somewhere. And I'm looking at him like, are you gonna make an attempt to find it in the sofa somewhere? And he looked at me like, no, I'm not gonna make any attempt to find anything. Red Book of Satisfaction, because that's what we are talking about today. Are you satisfied? Are we satisfied? What does it mean, satisfaction? I didn't look up the word. I didn't. I like to look up the word because I think language can help drive us towards the logic of the conversation. And I think logic in conversation is of great significance. What I think is ironic, and we could talk about dissatisfiers, I somewhat got uncomfortable and what is the word? Insecure the other day because I'm reading a book now. I keep forgetting what it's titled, but it's one of those books. Whereas I read the book that I read last week in the full week, I couldn't put it down. I can't put this one down either, but I feel like I have to read this really slow because the things that are in it are that powerful that I have to. And we talked about contemplation yesterday, right? There's a mode of contemplation. In fact, I have it still here. Let me see if I can find it because I thought it was important. We're talking about satisfaction. All right, my beautiful people. Oh, I skipped some things before we do that. Before we do that, I apologize. How are you doing? 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 It's Sunday morning. Are you starting your week or ending your week? Are you practicing faith today? I like to think that I demean it sometimes, and I'm working really hard on not judging and downing anything. I just don't want to. I think that when I reflect and I look at other people who are in this space and they're really adamant and maybe even scientific about don't do it this way, you look foolish and you look horrible. And why would you do that? Terrible. You suck at life. I think that when you gain elevation in that way by stepping on people, that's what I think it is. You're stepping on them and using them to elevate yourself. I just don't like the way that looks. And maybe because I've been stepped on in my life and used sort of as a tool, if you would, to just leverage to get up, it makes me uncomfortable. Maybe because I've been so dissatisfied with some of the things that I've experienced in my life. And maybe I'll get into that a little bit today as far as what drove me towards some of the successes I had. Initially, it was fear. And growing up where I grew up, South Bronx, I talk about this, right? I love the South Bronx. I love the fact that I grew up in the 80s. And if you just look at me, part of what I try to build from an image perspective is so directly in contrast. It would be a full 180 from what I was growing up. I wasn't like you would call like a herb. You know what I mean? But I was not the toughest dude on the block. I didn't run the block. I wasn't with. I knew the people who ran the block, the dope boys, if you would. But I was terrified. I didn't want to get involved in that lifestyle. I was a sports kind of dude. So in that way, and I was always alone. I was only alone, always alone. So in that way, I had to really be careful. I'm not the most biggest and most imposing. I talked about that the other day. So in that way, I had a lot of insecurity to overcome in that space because I would be stepped on. Given the opportunity, I was somebody you could step on real quick to gain some clout in the block. I was sort of in the middle. I wasn't the weakest, I wasn't the strongest, and I was somebody who was known enough and exposed enough where it was like, I could be used as a notch, if you would. In any event, I don't know why I went off on that that sort of tangent, but we're talking about satisfaction. I'm asking you how you're doing, and I don't want to again, I'm going to do things in a different way, the way I do it. I don't need to say that I think we should do things and offer suggestions and possibilities on how we could possibly improve every day in a way that says somebody else is wrong. I'm just going to suggest that what I'm learning, what I'm understanding, what I'm practicing has taught me this. And if it applies, cool, great. If it doesn't, cool, great. We could keep it pushing in that way. So how are you doing? However you're doing it. If you're starting the week or ending the week again, if this is a day you practice faith, and that's where I think I was alluding to, I got into a debate yesterday with my wife because someone who I know who's pretty close to me has become really religious lately and somewhat of a Jesus follower. And I got into like, oh, the people who just go to church on Sundays aren't really religious. And I just say this, if you're faithful, you should always be faithful. But if it helps you just to go on Sundays, who am I? And so I was kind of little, I reflected, I was a little upset with myself that I was so strong about being opinionated about something that I don't think aligns with what I believe is full faith. And that's what I'm learning as part of my great satisfiers and dissatisfiers. I'm so into my relationship with God that I can allow it to be paradoxically maybe as much as it provides for me, I can also get so defensive about it that it cracks who I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to build as a character, if that makes sense. So when those conversations sort of come up, I get very conscious and I get very locked in on what I believe it should only be, and then in that way, I can become very judgmental. I don't want to do that. I'm going long winded to get back to the point of how are you doing? If you're going to practice faith today, God bless you. Go practice faith. Go pray. Pray deeply. Ask. Receive. If you're just going to lay down and watch some movies and binge watch your life away, go ahead. Enjoy it. Enjoy Netflix. Enjoy Tubi. Enjoy Peacock. Enjoy your phone. Doom scroll. Whatever. But do it consciously. That's my only message. Do it consciously. Think about how you're doing. If it makes you feel good, great. Repeat it. If it doesn't make you feel good, great. Delete it. Find something else. But hopefully you're feeling blessed and beautiful and magnanimous and electric and full of life. I hope you're feeling full of life. Ask yourself that question. How are you doing? Answer it truthfully. Answer it positively. You are blessed. I don't care where you're at. I believe it. I'll say it. If there's nothing else I can offer you, aside from suggesting some of the things I'm doing that are driving me crazy and trying to lead me towards satisfaction, it is this. You are blessed. You are blessed. We are all blessed. We have a chance. So let's take it. Let's take advantage of that chance today and make the most of our opportunities with this one life. Right? We asked the question: we're talking about satisfaction. So this is me looking at you and you looking at me and us having a conversation. That's what we do on the Do You Rules, right? Especially on the live stream experience. We converse, we're open and honest, and we keep it logical. And somewhat. And I was going to say something about the book I'm reading that talked about that reason and logic could not really be something that the world is willing to listen to in abundance, in numbers, in masses, in crowds. And that the more that we crowd together, the less we reason and the less we logic, which would then lead me to encourage you and try to influence you to consider that the more we start to look at things in big, broad crowds, and the more we crowd ourselves with the idea of satisfaction through what the crowd sees, then the less reasonable and the less logical we get. Why? Because we're looking at what the crowd is doing. I offer you that. Think about that deeply. So when I ask the question, what is your satisfaction in life? What is satisfaction to you in your life, with your life, for your life? And what is it based on? What is satisfaction to you and what is it based on? And consider that when you begin to answer this question, presuming you want to answer this question, that it could be highly influenced by what the crowd and the mob is doing. Because how else then would we relate? But the question needs to be answered, I believe, I suggest, I offer you, just to you. What is satisfaction for you in your life and what is it based on? And this was inspired to me again by the Shaolin master who very succinctly just said, are there conditions? Are there conditions to your satisfactions? To when I broaden out that possibility and I really think deeply and I contemplate, because we contemplate now here on the Do You Rules. And I wanted to talk about what reading things in a contemplative way could be. But how are you influenced and how is your satisfaction for your life influenced? And I would reason with you again, which is dangerous because it's tough to reason when we're in a crowd, that if you look at the crowd and you judge by the crowd and you are influenced towards satisfaction by what the crowd is doing, the crowd is a lot less reasonable and a lot less logical, and it is influenced at a much higher level than reason and logic would allow. In fact, it's more instinctual and habitual towards some of the primitive states of mind, which is what is immediately allowed to be influenced through the visual stimulation. 80% of how we view the world is through our eyes. We visualize success a lot by what we see, and the crowd around us typically suggests and implies and shows who is more successful and who isn't. And in that way, you could be more satisfied or not based on how you view yourself in the crowd. But I asked the question, self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction. How would you define satisfaction for your life and how does it apply to you on the daily? And if you haven't considered that, I ask humbly that maybe you give it some consideration. And if you are considering it and you believe, like I believe, which is why I'm here every day, that every day you can make small little incremental improvements and every day is worth it because every day you get for life, every day you get for breath is a blessing, then how do we move forward? How do we keep momentum? How do we satisfy ourselves every day? That's a possibility. Do you consider that? That I want to be satisfied on the daily, that I'm allowed to feel satisfied consciously daily, that I'm allowed to make movements towards satisfaction for my life daily, however you see it. And it could be through material if you so choose. But the question again is, are you conditioning yourself to be satisfied through just material? And if you are, that's cool, but there's a requirement for that. Because the grander the material you seek, the grander the level of effort you will need to make. And I referenced some things about David Foster Wallace yesterday and how he warns about what you seek through levels of power and what that could do to you and quite ironically make you feel weak in the process. Intellect can make you feel somewhat less intellectual, right? The beauty, the allure and the sexual experience and exposure could actually make you feel less as you get older and it subsides. The more money and power, the more money and material you want, the less you feel you have. I'm not suggesting that that's true or that I align with it. I'm just offering you the possibility to contemplate that the great satisfaction you seek at the level you seek it at has the dichotomy of what do we talk about regularly? The polarities. So what's the balance to allow you to keep satisfaction for your life? It will come down to, of course, self-satisfaction, which the only way to achieve, I believe, the triune, the Holy Trinity, if you follow faith, today's a faithful Sunday. If you follow Catholicism, it will be the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, mind, body, spirit, conscious, subconscious, superconscious, id, ego, superego. It is the unification process, the harmonious process of all of that which is in you that allows you to reach the greatest level of satisfaction. I believe, I'm learning, I offer you the possibility to consider as a suggestion for your life. That's all. But however you describe it, what keeps you feeling satisfied? Whatever it is, repeat it as often as possible. And if at some point you feel dissatisfied, don't repeat that no more. I'm just asking you, I'm just asking questions. I then consider if we're discussing the possibility that we're seeking to be satisfied, we're seeking satisfaction in our lives, that at some juncture, as I just referenced, there's dissatisfiers. And there's naturally some things that occur in life that are dissatisfying. You know, pick a spectrum, any spectrum. Pick the God forbid, any God forbids. There's tragedy. There's things that are out of our control that happen that create dissatisfiers. I'm not talking about that because those things are obvious and we got to deal with them as we deal with them. I said this to my wife yesterday as I'm starting to learn, and I try to rationalize the fear in my life, the fear of all the things that I lose, that if you could follow the book, which I don't necessarily, I'm still trying to learn, but if you could believe the story of Jesus and that Jesus was the only son of God, I don't believe that. I think there was a deeper meaning. But God could sacrifice his son. If that's true, if that is a possibility that satisfies you faithfully, then you can say, yo, the creator, God, Yahweh, however you identify, sacrificed his only son. There is nothing then that you can argue with him about what is too deep to overcome. God sacrificed his son so that we can live sin-free, or we could be absolved of our sins, depending on how you look at it. I think there's metaphors that apply to the satisfaction of life. Point being, tragedy strikes. Sacrifice is required at the greatest and grandest of levels, and you are being watched and witnessed through the eyes of creator for creation and how you seek your satisfaction. We're talking about everyday life, though. Let's retract a bit. I don't want to say diluted by any way, because I just think, again, let's stick to every day. We're talking every day. Tragedy strikes every day, but the majority of us every day are more blessed than we are living tragically. So how do we go from satisfied to dissatisfied? What occurs in our life that is not so egregious and obvious that we go from satisfaction to dissatisfaction? And this happens quite regularly and quite often because we're just regular people doing regular things, experiencing life on the daily. And depending on how we experience life on the daily and where we're at in our environment, our physical environment, our spiritual environment, our mental environment, our intellectual environment, the ability for us to have power and authority over ourselves and what we're doing and the outcomes of our lives create levels of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. That makes sense, right? All right, cool. It leads me to wonder, as I've sort of alluded to with the crowd, I question, do we all strive for the same types of satisfactions? I think that's a logical question. I think it's a fair question. And what could that possibly mean? It goes back to, how could we be defining satisfactions, and when do we start to decide that we're dissatisfied? And it could be in our careers, there's a level of dissatisfaction with our compensation, with our title, with our structures, with our hierarchy, with how we're being mentored and nurtured, and or not. Maybe we're not receiving any of those things and we have that moment. It could be our level of competence. And so we strive for more degrees and more papers and more certificates and more things that validate us and our intellect. But then again, when we achieve, that satisfies us in a way, but then how do we apply it? In our family lives, some of us, if you're like me, I talked about my relationship. I've been with my wife since 1999. 1999, it's 2025. You're talking about 17, 18 to 43, going on 44. My wife just talking. You know how many iterations of myself I've evolved from? You know how different I am over 25 years? You know what the difference is between having teenage kids and having infants and everything in between? So in that way, in your family life, and then it could be, mine is I focused on just my wife and my two children. I'm not saying you should. I have a typical Hispanic family. I have cousins on top of cousins on top of cousins on top of cousins. Both my grandparents from both my sides are still alive. I still have a father out there somewhere. My mother's still out there. So I have family and aunts and uncles, all those things, just like you. Just like you. But my circle is, even with family, that's a conversation for another day. Family is a great dissatisfier for me. I know, and I hate that I say that, but I don't find satisfaction in my family. From I talked about recently, I just think the generational curse is tied into the mystique and the aura and the essence and the energy of my family, and I could be misguided and delusional, but I'd rather be misguided and delusional in this way. I sense a great dissatisfaction in how my family lives, and they walk, talk, and produce that energy of dissatisfaction, but they stay there. I can't do that. So in that way, I can't expose myself or my children or my wife to that anymore. I know how this sounds. It's terrible. I know. I feel like we got to get into detail for another day. But I'm conscious of like, yo, I can't have that near me. Why? Because the strive and the dedication and the work to become satisfied as much as possible every day, I can't at all in any capacity, regardless of how it looks, sounds, or means, compromise that. I can't put that at risk. That's a risk for me. That's why I say no to a lot of things. That's why I don't go a lot of places. That's why if it's not absolutely required and requirements are, it got to satisfy me towards growth. In one of the areas of life I'm looking for growth, I do not do it. I don't do it. I offer you that. Am I right? I'm right for me. Am I wrong? I could be wrong for you. You could, and I'm also an only child. I'm also used to being alone. Maybe that's just the way I was built. And so that's the way I carry on. Maybe you need 97,000 people around you. Whatever. If that satisfies you, cool. What I'm saying is be conscious about it, right? I'm conscious. So do we all strive for the same satisfiers, right? And then how do we delineate? I also got into the concept because we talked about, all right, in your career, where you satisfied, right? Which implies money. I talked about your intellect, your family. Family's important. And then your environment. And I think your environment is all encompassing. Are you satisfied with your current environment? I grew up in the projects, my G. I think I can say this every day because I think it's important. That's home to me. I go back and my wife we talked, I can go back to New York City. I can go back to the projects in the South Bronx. It snaps back. It comes right back. It's too ingrained. I lived there. Up until my adulthood. So it's in me. You can't take away the 20 years, 21 years just about I spent in the projects. You can't. It's me. I'm proud of it. I don't dismiss it. I'm satisfied with that portion of my life. I'm also satisfied enough to know that would be a great dissatisfier for me to go back to that environment. Why? It's hard there. It's not a fact of judgment. Think about the environment. If you've ever seen that environment, been around that environment, what it creates. It's not highly stimulant and conducive to overall satisfaction in the areas of life you're able to be satisfied. But however, in the same way, there's great life there. There's great family, great bond. Like people like to demean and talk about hood life, ghetto life, project life in a way that is like, oh my God, it's terrible. I had somebody the other day tell me who was born in Brooklyn, and their father was from the Bronx, and 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 she said to me, my father said that the Bronx is off limits. Yo, that's crazy. And I could have easily got offended. It's natural to get offended, but it's why? Because there's a lot of dissatisfiers there. Obviously, it's fiend driven. It's drug induced. It is very low energy and low frequency. And I say that with great respect because why? Yo, you start from you would talk about starting from the bottom. That's pretty much starting from the bottom. A lot of people lack the skills because they lack the exposure, because they lack the nurturing, broken homes, all these things. It adds up. You can't keep, listen, one and one and one and one. One on one is always going to get you two. You add another one that gets you three. You add another one that gets you four. And you start to add all these dissatisfiers into an environment. And what do you think is created? An overall dissatisfied environment. But in that way, there's massive brotherhood. In that way, I could be fighting with my neighbor quite literally, but if somebody comes into our environment and becomes a threat to our environment, we seek to get those people out quick. And I'll defend my brethren in that way that, yo, I know I just was just fighting with Jeff. I know I want to take his lunch money, but yo, that dude, he don't belong here. We got to get him out. There's power in that. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about that when we are in that broken, fractured, non-nurturing environment. This is why, the structure of I don't want to use the word gangs, but because I think what we're seeking is unity. When it lacks, when there's a dissatisfier in that way, we seek that comfort and we put on the front and the facade. We hardcore, right? We rep our block, we protect our block. But what we're really doing is we're coming together and unifying ourselves. Why? Because we seek that satisfaction. It may not be that blatantly obvious to us, or it may be too emotionally soft in a way, but really that's what we're looking for. Friendship, kinship, tribe. And so in that way, I don't knock it. I learned that from there. You learn to protect yourself. I tell you what, growing up in an environment where it's pretty much, every day is like, ooh, I made it. It offers you a certain power. There's satisfaction in that you can learn how to navigate. You learn how to talk your way through things, in things, and out of things. You learn how to create friends that are really loyal, and you know how to avoid people who are no good. Those are that is massive teachings in life, massive wisdom. I digress, right? But I love where I'm from. I can go back there, boom, it comes right back to me. It's ingrained. It's part of, and you know what? I proudly take it with me to the boardroom. To the boardroom. I at the executive level, at the decision making level for billion-dollar organizations, I bring the hood with me. I'm proud of that. I respect where I'm from and what it gave me. It's a satisfier for me in a lot of ways. This satisfier also that again, for all the things I already referenced. But what we're talking about here from a satisfaction perspective is your environment, your physical environment, your home, where you rest at. And I believe ultimately the self-satisfaction comes down to your home, the triune mind, body, spirit, unity and harmony here. You got to find a way to satisfy yourself on those degrees and those levels, because when you do, I believe anyway, you don't have to. I could be crazy. Dismiss it. You connect mind, body, and spirit in a satisfactory way, and all of a sudden, everything's just clicking, everything's just moving, and you can continue to create other satisfactions. What satisfies my mind intellectually, spiritually, physically, emotionally, etc. And then we have to ask the question, right? How do we delineate and how do we go to dissatisfiers? Consider what I do today in the business. That dissatisfaction doesn't always have to be like a market crash and the Great Depression and all the things that have occurred throughout history, the revolutions that brought us to a society that is the society we are today. There's a lot less dissatisfaction in our worlds. Just look and review timelines of history. That's why I emphasize that we're blessed. We are. Greatest time to be alive. Some of you wouldn't make it in other eras. I question if I would have made it in other eras. This version of me would have made it in other eras, but it took a while for me to get to this version. You know what I mean? You feel what I'm saying? There's just a reality to that. We got to accept that and understand it. But in that way, I believe there's a lot less reason for us to be dissatisfied, especially if you're Western culture American. I get that some countries are still behind us and some things go on that are terrible. And if this makes it to you, it's just the reality is a lot less likely that you're in those conditions. Talk about the conditions and how life is conditioning to you, how life is conditioning to you, how life is conditioning you, and you are conditioning yourself based on again what you see and how you define your satisfaction. How could we possibly and what happens and what occurs from satisfaction till you wake up? Oh, I'm dissatisfied in my profession, and I think that I'm gonna try to make this succinct because I think the point of this is that I believe I'm trying to make is helpful. But of course I do because I'm talking. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking, right? All right, cool. So I deal with applications and systems that help workflow efficiency, right? So if you're a frontline worker, pick a business, any business, healthcare, financial, a damn barista at Starbucks, right? I understand and I get into understand what the workflows are, and I introduce technology that enhances the workflow. Listen to what I'm saying to you. There's already an existing workflow. But what occurs now is there's some dissatisfaction in how things are working. And so naturally, like anything else, we look to enhance it. And naturally, because the world has evolved in such a way, really just cloud-based technologies, and I'm not going to get too deep into the technology jargon, just to say that clearly we've made advancements in technology. Clearly, technology offers us a lot of opportunities to optimize our workflows. So you take what you're doing every day, healthcare worker, financial worker, Starbucks barista, and you have tools that are helping you do your job. And the tools that help you do your job either make you more or less efficient, which make you either more or less satisfied or dissatisfied. At some point, a decision was made on the current workflow that keeps you working your day-to-day without friction. Fair? I go in, I clock in, I sit at my desk, I log onto my computer, I connect to the internet, I add the beans to the coffee machine, whatever it is you're doing. At some point, that workflow was adopted and scaled and became a standard, and it worked. And then because time passed and things changed, it no longer works. I'm going to get back to that because it's important. It no longer works. So think about that. You're satisfied. Now all of a sudden, I'm dissatisfied. And maybe because you got a new budget. And when people get new budgets, they got to spend it. Because if you don't spend it, people start to ask questions like, why did I put you in a decision-making process to spend budget and you can't find reason to spend budget? Are you not strategic enough to understand the tactics? There's a reality to that in business, right? So somebody in an empty suit gets new budget, and maybe it's operating budget, OPEX, which is not capitalized, meaning CAPEX, which is more year over year. It's a one-time spend. I got all this money that I got to spend one time to create new operational efficiencies so that the business is able to satisfy some of its dissatisfiers. Fair enough? So I go in, I assess the situation, and the first thing I ask is, how is it working today? I want to know how it's working today. I need to understand how it's working today. If I don't have a baseline for how it works today, I won't know what I'm doing. And I won't know what to implement new to optimize. That's what we're looking to do. We're optimizing. We're creating new satisfiers. So in that way, I get a baseline. Okay, this is what you do today. Cool. I understand where your workflow's at. I understand the deliverables. What's not working? Right? What's not working? And you start to hear all the, well, when I clock in here, and then when I do this an hour later, and then this takes me 15 extra minutes, and all these things don't work. But the reality is the system is working. It just needs new tools to do different things. I got to create a satisfier. So you introduce all these new possibilities. If you did this, and if I put this here, and I put that there, and I deployed this, and I downloaded that, it will make it do all these other things. But here's the significance about the reality to changing a system to make it work when it's not working to create new satisfactions from dissatisfiers. Data integrity, which means what? I need all the information from this old system to go into the new system for the new system to work. Because the old system is still working, is still on, is doing everything you told it to do. You've just decided now it no longer works for you. You're now dissatisfied with it. So now you want the new shiny object, you want the new toy, you think it's going to give you all these great things, and it probably will. But you still need all the information that was here in the old that you think is not working but is working. You're just dissatisfied with it. And we have to put it in the new system in order for the new system to understand how to give you the efficiencies that the old system is no longer giving you. And without that data and the integrity of the data, this won't work. What does that mean? In order for you to go from satisfied to dissatisfied to satisfied again, you got to take all that creates dissatisfaction, and understand all that comes in that dissatisfaction for you and bring it with you to new satisfiers. You got to understand where you're at in your financial space, your career space, your mental, spiritual, and emotional space. All that data that you think is no longer working still works. It's just you want to make it work in a more satisfactory way. It got to come with you. You got to download that into the new process in order to create new satisfiers. You get what I'm trying to say? Very important to the process of going from dissatisfaction to, again, satisfaction. Left to not identify that, you just stay as that system that's been satisfied whenever it was satisfied and never made an adjustment or iterated or optimized, presuming you believe you need to optimize. You might have reached the point where everything works as is and nothing needs to change. But if you reach the realization that you have some dissatisfiers, you got to create new satisfiers, which means likely you got to create new processes, new rhythms, habits, and patterns that drive you towards new satisfactions, mind, body, and spirit. You got to take some risks. You got to create a plan. You got to have value add, right? What's your value proposition? If you don't have a value proposition for how you intend to create new satisfaction with your life, you're never going to create new satisfaction with your life. And if you don't come to that consciousness and realization, you're either good with where you're at, which we talk about all the time and regularly. You should not be complaining. You should not be in the market for new tools if everything's working as is. You're satisfied. Just keep maintaining it. There's work to maintain it. If you come to consciousness that you're dissatisfied and you don't make an attempt to satisfy yourself and you go back to dissatisfaction, well, then I question what you're doing. I question what you're doing. So which I wrote, if you seek to be satisfied in new ways, we're going to get into sort of, I think, possibly maybe. How do you create self-satisfaction? And I asked the question, do you bring satisfaction to life so life can return you equal satisfaction? Do you bring satisfaction to life so life can bring you equal satisfaction? Reciprocity. The fact that the world works in a unified, harmonious, collaborative process. If you haven't followed me long enough to know, if we haven't done this enough on the live experience, in the recorded experience, in the dreams, I feel like I talk to you all in my dreams all night. It's one of the greatest experiences that I could dream in this state and not have to worry about what I'm saying. I just feel like, I wake up like I just had 6 hours of conversation with the world. Crazy. That satisfies me. I'd rather sleep that way. I'd rather sleep in that dream state. And if it comes to fruition in this reality, how we quantify reality and makes me satisfied, cool. If it doesn't, cool. But the question is going to be, are you bringing a level of satisfaction to life? An appreciation of blessedness to life, of grit, grind, hard work, dedication, discipline, all those things. Virtuousness, your ethics, your values, your morals, your principles. Are you satisfied with them? Your workflow for life, how you are sustained daily from the minute you wake up. How do you wake up? If you wake up in a panic, or if you wake up with time, or if you wake up in between, well then those are your satisfiers. That's the satisfaction you return to life. That is the satisfaction life returns to you. That's the satisfaction you invest into life. That's the satisfaction life returns to you. And then how you proceed throughout your day. It's so crazy that how you wake up and how you go to sleep. Yeah, I said it right, but I meant it this way. How you go to sleep and then how you wake up. Maybe I meant it that way. How you wake up and how you go to sleep dictates the entirety of your day. Now, in the improvement process, if you're finding yourself dissatisfied, the very first thing you could do to create some new satisfaction is sleep on time every time, wake up on time every time. I'm talking about, listen to the words, sleep on time every time, wake up on time every time will create massive satisfaction for your life in a new way that you never could possibly imagine. Now, we could overlook that as grown adult humans trying to satisfy ourselves in this life. Consider what I'm saying. A lot of us don't sleep well. A lot of us don't get proper sleep to rejuvenate ourselves. Why? Because we don't have nothing that's satisfying, possibly, if you fall in this category. You're not creating satisfaction from the minute you wake up. Then you can wake up unsatisfied and dissatisfied. Imagine that. So you put yourself in a rush. Why are you in a rush? Because you're not really trying to get through your day. You're not even really trying to start your day. You feel like it's arduous. Oh, man, you don't feel blessed when you wake up. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? If that's you, presuming that's you. You don't wake up with urgency. You don't wake, not urgency like, oh, my God, I'm late. I got to hurry up. No. I wake up with urgency like, yo, I'm going to go self-satisfy. Ooh, I'm going to self-satisfy, baby. I'm going to take care of myself, baby. I'm going to go pray. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to read. I'm going to write. I'm going to run. I'm going to get myself satisfied and taken care of before I start my day. Why? Because I'm returning satisfaction to life so life can return me satisfaction. That's the improvement process. You feel what I'm saying? How do you create self-satisfaction? How you create self-satisfaction is how the satisfaction is created with your life. Think about what I'm saying. If you take nothing else from me, I said yesterday, meditation is one of them. Ooh, baby. Meditate, think, contemplate. Beautiful, beautiful place to be is blissful. It's very satisfying. Going to sleep on time to know I'm about to rejuvenate, satisfying. Waking up on time, 3:30, satisfying. Come on, man. Okay. I asked this question then. What emotion, I think we need emotion, are you using to create dissatisfaction in order to go pursue and seek satisfaction? I told you, as I grew up, for me, the greatest motivator, the greatest why was fear. I didn't want to stay in the projects. I didn't. I just did not. I wanted greater satisfaction materially, straight up. You ever been in the concrete, in the projects, the concrete box? I'm not knocking it. I'm not knocking it. I'm not suggesting that it's a dissatisfier because it's not built to the greatest standards. I'm just saying that for me, when I wanted to create life and family and a generation that would impact the world, it wasn't going to be in the projects. Because too many dissatisfiers for me there. Too many dissatisfiers. Come on, man. So fear was massive for me. I had to get out. I got to get out. That was just me. Yo, I can remember from when I was a child, as young as I can remember, I got to get out of here. It's scary. I don't want to live in this fear every day. You know what it is to go home, to be in your block and feel fear because you don't know what the block's going to bring you? You don't know if the block's going to turn against you? Everywhere, my G. I get it. Everywhere offers that possibility. You never know. You can walk outside right now. You never know. Just because you live in the best zip code. Crime is crime. Hate is hate. Violence is violence. Evil is evil. It comes everywhere. It comes to you no matter where you're at. I get it. But guess what? The logic and the math, I'm a numbers person. The numbers are higher in the projects. They're a lot lower in certain zip codes. I got tired of getting my lunch money taken. After a while, you're like, yo, how do I fight back? There's a reality to I got to build myself up. I got to punch back. And sometimes, even if I got to bleed in the process, even if I get hurt in the process, I learned that. That's not fun. Why would I want to stay there? And then after you stop getting physically punched, life just starts to emotionally beat you down. Because what? You transition to adulthood, still doing kid things, man. I'm just saying. It's not what I wanted. So fear was my greatest motivator. Fear was my greatest motivator. Right now, the greatest dissatisfier for me is competence. And when I say competence, I mean that I'm fully committed. I'm all in on being able to articulate myself to the highest degree.
At me, you know it's on you, baby.
Oh, come on, man. My bad, twin. That's what my son would say. My bad, twin. My soundboard went off. Excuse me. We flowing. All right, my great dissatisfier. Ooh, I offer you this, my blessed people. I was scared to come on today. Because I didn't have anything written down yesterday. I wasn't sure I was prepared. I wasn't sure I was ready. I went to bed at 11 o'clock last night because I was watching movies with my wife and my kid. But I'm here, baby. I'm satisfied. I offer you that. I offer you that I knew, and I said to myself before I click go, that I will be satisfied doing this, and I will be satisfied when I stop streaming, because this is a satisfier for me. So incompetence, I just think that I got to be able to, give me a second, man. Let me. Ooh. All right. What are you going to use to drive you towards new satisfaction? I have to have a level of competence, conscious, subconscious, superconscious, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, mind, body, spirit, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, in my environment of who I am, the environment that surrounds me, the environment I surround. You know, they talk about men today, and I feel strongly about manhood. And I have an opinion on if masculinity is sort of denigrating and degrading and becoming this difficult experience. I'm willing to offer some assistance in that way if I can, because I believe deeply in being a man, maybe because I'm a man. I also grew up in a very machismo style environment, both with family and how my Hispanic culture was, and growing up in the projects. Like, that was one of the quick identifiers. If you lacked masculinity in a way, toughness, you got picked on the regular. That was just a reality. Anyway, I do believe there are a lot of men who have achieved great things who will say you got to become dangerous. And dangerous is like, I'm not, you preface it. I guess you feel need to preface it, whatever. You're not looking to go hurt nobody, but I'm not looking to be a walkover, a pushover. You get what I'm saying? So in that way too, I learned in my professional career, as I gained strength professionally and as my career grew and I started to be compensated in a different way, it was only when I became more dangerous in my career, when I became the subject matter expert, when I became the go-to, when I put in the most force, energy, and effort, and it was undeniable. Right? In that way, I become a symbol for my family as a husband and a father. I've been the opposite of strength when it came to fatherhood and husbandhood, and the commitment. I believe, if anything, when I talk about competence, the reason why we become incompetent and dissatisfied is because we're losing the commitment to ourselves. And when we lose the commitment to ourselves, we lose the commitment to what we commit to that keeps us satisfied holistically, mind, body, and spirit, which is all encompassing in how I offer my environment satisfaction and my environment returns me satisfaction. If I am uncommitted And if I am able to be manipulated and persuaded and influenced in a different direction, whether it's by the crowd or a different image or a different version of masculinity, well, then I could break down and I could fracture everything I'm trying to build that creates the satisfaction I believe is conducive to the highest conscious living. How you define it. Your path of virtuousness. I believe that I believe so sincerely that everybody believes that they're doing the right thing in a way that, hey, if it makes, and I was reading something that somebody said it could be a little bit weak if you have an opinion that says, you just do you. But yo, look, at some point, you got to do you. And I also believe if you build strength enough, a wave of a different level of morality, if you would, that is seeking to surface, a different level of faith and commitment, to stay committed to the micro. We talk about this every day, right? That the little things matter. And if I can stay committed to the little things long enough, it's not to say that other temptations don't exist and I pretend like, nope, or I'm this all masculine, oh, I'm all about my family and marriage because I would never. No, I could. That's the reality of satisfaction and dissatisfaction, is that when we determine that some things are dissatisfiers, it becomes bad. No, it just becomes a choice. Hey, man, what's up, AI Magic? I don't know if you just joined, but I'm in the hype here. We got somebody on the chat. Blessings. If you're still there, blessings. Oh, where was I at? All right. So if I want to be competent in all levels because I want to be satisfied in my life in all levels, it's just that I'm making a conscious decision to understand I could be very immoral, but who am I to define immoral? But I could go against what I believe is the virtuousness of my life at any juncture. At any point in time, I can make the opposite decision. And that's the point. It's not to pretend like the dissatisfiers that some crowds look at as not good and satisfiers that are good are not in either end of the spectrum, good or not good. It's just that I'm making conscious decisions to say no to what I believe I got to say no to, which is inclusive of how I go to sleep, how I wake up, and how I produce in my everyday life. That I'm satisfied with every move I make. Every move I make, I'm conscious of it. I try to script it and not go off script from who at least I'm trying to be so that I can be prepared for the off script, off the cuff, things that happen that I'm not really able to predict or have control over. I don't know any other way to approach it or address it or make it a satisfier. This is why we talk about improving every day. This is why I believe in the improvement process daily. This is why I believe that mind, body, and spirit equates to the type of satisfaction that no other conditions can really create for yourself. And in that way, when you create the ultimate satisfaction of mind, body, and spirit, then any condition you seek, there's no limit financially. There's no limit in your career. There's no limit in your impact to the world, however big the stage. There isn't. And you shouldn't limit those conditions. Go seek that satisfaction at whatever degree you seek it. In your intellect, your degrees, your papers, all that, your family, your environment, all that. Create the satisfaction you seek at the level you seek it. However you seek it. There's no reason to say dissatisfied at all. Not in today's world, right? Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich. Ooh, baby.